Before plastic bodies and anti-vibe handles, chainsaws were cast-iron monsters that kicked like a mule and screamed like a banshee. Some weighed more than the man swinging them. A few made so much torque they could throw a grown logger off his feet. From the smoky sawmills of the 1940s to the last of the analog giants in the 1990s, these are the 10 most powerful vintage chainsaws ever built, and the stories of the men who dared to run them. Number 10. The IEL Super Pioneer. Our countdown starts in Canada, because that's where the one-man saw was truly born. In 1946, a Vancouver outfit called Industrial Engineering Limited, IEL for short, perfected the world's first practical one-man gasoline chainsaw, and they named it the Beaver. Up to that point, cutting timber meant a heavy two-man machine and a partner on the far handle. The Beaver changed everything, and sales took off worldwide. Then, in 1951, IEL introduced the model that put real muscle behind the idea, the Super Pioneer. This was a saw built for the brutal coastal forests of British Columbia, where Douglas firs grow to enormous size. The Super Pioneer earned a reputation as a genuine force to be reckoned with, a rugged, torque-heavy machine that could keep chewing through old-growth timber all day long. What makes it belong on a most powerful list isn't a huge horsepower number. Early saws like this turned low RPM and relied on reduction drives to multiply torque rather than chase speed. It's what the Super Pioneer represented, the moment a single logger could carry serious cutting power into the woods on his own two shoulders. IEL's Pioneer brand became a Canadian icon. The company was bought by Outboard Marine Corporation in 1956, moved production to Peterborough, Ontario, and the Pioneer name lived on until 1977. For a while in the Pacific Northwest, Pioneer saws were as respected as anything coming out of Germany or the United States. The Super Pioneer is where the modern era of powerful portable saws really begins, and that history alone earns it the number 10 spot. Number 9. The McCulloch Super 250. If the Super Pioneer was about brute endurance, the McCulloch Super 250 was about attitude. McCulloch Motors Corporation was founded in 1943 by Robert Paxton McCulloch, and the company built its name on fast, aggressive two-stroke engines. In 1950, McCulloch was among the first to fit a diaphragm carburetor to a chainsaw, the breakthrough that let a saw run at any angle instead of only upright. That engineering DNA ran right through to the 250 series. The standard McCulloch 250 displaced 80 cc. The Super 250, produced from 1970 to 1975, stretched that out to 87 cc through revised porting and a longer stroke, and McCulloch didn't hand out the Super badge lightly. When they used it, it meant a real noticeable jump in power. The Super typically added an automatic oiler and a primer for easier starting, and it built compression in the neighborhood of 140 to 165 psi. 87 cubic centimeters doesn't sound like much next to the giants further up this list, but the Super 250 punched far above its weight. It became a legend among firewood cutters, competition sawyers, and working pros who wanted a saw that felt alive in the cut. Plenty of loggers bought one new in the early 70s and never let it go. What sealed its reputation was raw reviness. McCulloch two-strokes loved to spin, and the Super 250 had the kind of snappy throttle response that made bigger, heavier gear drive saws feel sleepy by comparison. It was quick, it was loud, and it was tough enough to survive decades of abuse. Collectors today still find them buried in barns, clean them up, and fire them right back to life. For sheer usable power in a package a real person could actually swing all day, the Super 250 is a deserving number 9. Number 8. The Husqvarna 2100 CD. Husqvarna is a centuries-old Swedish company that got into chainsaws relatively late, but when it arrived swinging. By the late 1970s, the firm was ready to challenge the American and German heavyweights head-on, and its answer was the 2100. The Husqvarna 2100 CD displaced 99 cc and was produced from 1979 to 1987. The CD stood for capacitor discharge, an electronic ignition system that replaced the old fussy breaker points and made the saw start more reliably and run more consistently. Husqvarna's own 1980s marketing didn't mince words. It called the 2100 CD its most powerful professional saw and backed that up with a favorable power-to-weight ratio that made a nearly 100cc machine surprisingly manageable in the hands. This was a saw built for heavy timber felling and long bar work. Loggers ran it with big bars for milling and for dropping large trees, and it developed a cult following that has never really faded. Ask veteran cutters about it and you'll hear the same thing over and over. Fathers and uncles ran 2100s all through the 1980s, and its great rival was the STIHL 084. That's elite company. The engineering held up remarkably well. These saws were built simple and built strong. No complicated electronics beyond the ignition, no fragile plastics in the wrong places. It's common to find 2100 CDs still running strong after 40 years of service. On a portable mill, that big displacement engine produces more real horsepower than plenty of far newer professional saws. The 2100 marked the moment Husqvarna truly became a top-tier power player, setting the stage for the brand's dominance in the decades that followed. As a vintage beast that combined genuine grunt with Swedish build quality, the 2100 CD absolutely earns its place at number 8. Number 7. The McCulloch 185. Now we get into the world of the gear drive giants, and few brands did gear drive with more swagger than McCulloch. The McCulloch 185 was a roughly 99cc gear-driven saw built during the golden age of West Coast logging, and it became a favorite of the timber fallers who dropped the massive trees of the Pacific Northwest. Here's the key thing to understand about a gear drive saw. Instead of connecting the engine directly to the chain, it runs the power through a reduction gearbox. You trade top-end chain speed for a huge multiplication of torque. That means a gear drive saw doesn't cut fast in the flashy sense. It cuts relentless. You could bury the bar in a 4-foot thick log, and the 185 would just keep grinding forward without bogging down hour after hour, cut after cut. McCulloch built a whole family of these torque monsters. The 185, the 840, the 895, and owners describe them all the same way. They pull incredibly hard, but they're not particularly fast. That's exactly what you want when the tree in front of you is older than your grandfather and wider than your truck. In footage that still circulates among collectors, one of these McCulloch gear drives will chew through a 48-inch sycamore, while a modern saw makes about 1.5 cuts in the same time, the gear drive making one long, unstoppable pass. The 185 wasn't the biggest saw McCulloch ever made. The company's monster 123cc models are still to come on this list, but it represents something important: the specialized torque-first tool that let a single faller take down the giants of the old-growth forest. Heavy, deliberate, and nearly unstoppable in a big log, the McCulloch 185 takes number 7. Number 6. The Homelite 829. Homelite was, by the mid-1960s, one of the largest chainsaw manufacturers on the planet. A Textron-owned American giant with a lineup that ran from tiny brush cutters all the way up to the most serious professional logging saws in the world. And at the very top of that heap sat the enormous Homelite 829. The 829 displaced 129cc and made a rated 8 horsepower, and the number in the name tells the story: 8 for 8 horsepower, 29 for the engine family. It was a gear drive saw, which, as we've covered, meant colossal torque rather than screaming speed. This was the kind of machine you brought out when nothing smaller would do. To put its size in context, within Homelite's own catalog, the popular consumer saws hovered around 100cc at the top end, and the beloved direct drive 2000 series saws came in around 114cc. The 829, along with its close relative the 729, sat above all of them, genuinely among the biggest and most powerful chainsaws Homelite ever built. When collectors argue about the most powerful Homelite of all time, the 829 and the 3100G are always in the conversation, and for sheer displacement and rated horsepower, the 829 wins. Number 5. The STIHL Super Rex. Germany didn't just give the world STIHL and Dolmar. STIHL was another serious German manufacturer, and its Super Rex was one of the largest one-man chainsaws ever put into production anywhere. A genuine 142cc heavyweight. Let that displacement sink in for a moment. 142 cubic centimeters in a saw designed to be operated by a single person. is monstrous. To put it in perspective, that's larger than the STIHL 090 that tops this very list, and larger than nearly every modern production chainsaw you can walk into a dealership and buy today. The Super Rex belonged to a rare breed of post-war European supersaws built for the heaviest professional felling, where operators needed maximum cutting power and were willing to wrestle a very large machine to get it. The post-war years were a genuine arms race in the chainsaw world. Lighter alloys, better metallurgy, and improved two-stroke engine design were transforming what was possible, and manufacturers across Germany, North America, and Scandinavia kept pushing displacement higher and higher to conquer bigger timber. Solo was right in the thick of that competition, and the Super Rex was its statement piece, proof that the company could build an engine to stand shoulder to shoulder with anything from Stuttgart or California. Saws like this occupied a specific and demanding niche. They weren't for the casual user or even the average logger. They were for the specialist felling the largest trees, where the sheer mass of the saw was an acceptable trade for its overwhelming power in the cut. The men who ran them were a tough breed, and the machines matched them. Because it's a rarer bird, the Super Rex doesn't get talked about as much as the American and German legends around it. But on pure displacement, few one-man production saws of the vintage era ever beat it. The 142cc Solo Super Rex is an easy number 5. Number 4. The STIHL Contra. Some saws make this list for raw size. The STIHL Contra makes it for changing the entire industry and for being astonishingly powerful for its moment in history. Launched in 1959, the Contra was STIHL's first gearless direct-drive one-man chainsaw, and it was a revolution. It displaced 106cc from a single cylinder, a 58mm bore, and a 40mm stroke, and produced 6 horsepower at 7,000 RPM, all while weighing just 12 kilograms, around 26.5 pounds, complete with bar and chain. For 1959, that combination of power and portability was simply unheard of. 2 innovations made it work. First, the direct drive. By connecting the engine straight to the chain sprocket, STI delivered more usable power and faster cutting than the gear-driven saws of the day. Second, and just as important, was the diaphragm carburetor that could work in any orientation. Older saws had carburetors that needed to sit upright, forcing operators to fuss with the machine every time they changed cutting position. The Contra could be swiveled freely, felling, then bucking, then limbing, with no adjustment at all. The results were staggering. STIHL reported that forestry crews using the Contra could increase their productivity by as much as 200%. Word spread fast, and the Contra quickly became known as the one-man gasoline saw with the highest cutting performance in the world. Production at the STIHL plant exploded from around 100 saws a day to 500 a day by 1964, and the company's global rise was underway. STIHL has been the world's best-selling chainsaw brand ever since 1971, a run that traces directly back to this machine. STIHL later built even hotter versions, including the Contra Lightning, that pushed the displacement all the way to 137cc. But the original 1959 Contra is the true landmark. Powerful, light, and revolutionary. It's the blueprint nearly every modern chainsaw still follows, and it more than earns number 4. Number 3. The McCulloch SP125 Super 797. Now we reach the American muscle car of the chainsaw world. McCulloch built a family of enormous 123cc saws, the 797, the Super 797, the CP125, the SP125, and the Super Pro 125, and together they represent some of the most powerful production one-man saws the United States ever produced. In cubic inches, that's about 7.5 cubes of raw two-stroke fury. Here's a fact that stuns people. The McCulloch 123cc engine is actually larger in displacement than the modern STIHL MS-881 Magnum, one of the biggest chainsaws you can buy brand new today. A saw designed in the late 1960s outdisplaces a flagship 21st century machine. That's how far ahead these McCulloch monsters were. There were meaningful differences within the family. The regular 797 often ran a Tillotson carburetor and thinner rings, while the Super 797 versions frequently used a different carburetor and thicker rings, meaning, interestingly, the Super was in some ways detuned for durability rather than tuned for more peak power. Some of these were piston-ported and some used reed valve induction, and the reed valve versions in particular were famous for a broad, brutal torque band that let them pull very long bars through very large logs. Just how much horsepower? McCulloch was famously cagey about it. Company reps refused to get dragged into horsepower debates, arguing that differences between reed valve and piston-ported designs made direct comparison meaningless. But modern dyno testing has told the tale. Some of these McCulloch 125s, especially examples fitted with the hotter cart-derived engines, have produced well over 10 horsepower. That's genuinely enormous for the era. These were saws for the professional dropping the biggest timber in North America, heavy, thunderous, and capable of swallowing a 48-inch oak log up to the full length of a 4-foot bar. Loud, proud, and utterly American, the McCulloch 123cc family lands a commanding number 3. Number 2. The Disston Mercury DA-211. For sheer jaw-dropping size, almost nothing in the vintage world touches the Disston DA-211. This is the largest displacement one-man saw ever put into production. A genuine 180cc twin-cylinder beast. The heart of the DA-211 was a 2-cylinder Mercury engine producing 9 horsepower with enormous torque, mated to a 3/4-inch pitch chain so aggressive it could physically throw the operator if he wasn't ready for it. Fully loaded with a 36-inch bar, the saw weighed around 65 pounds, and Disston offered bars for it that stretched all the way out to an incredible 8 feet. Try to imagine sharpening 16 feet of chain on a single saw, and you start to understand what a different world 1950s logging was. It was marketed in 1951 for one-man operation, though in practice a machine this large blurred the line between a one-man and a two-man saw. During the Korean War, versions of this engine were built up for military use, arriving in a complete kit with fuel and oil cans, a full toolbox, spare chain, and a box of replacement parts, everything a crew needed to keep the monster running in the field. Collectors who have restored and run the DA-211 describe the experience with real reverence. They talk about the respect the saw demands, the way it sounds like an outboard boat motor at full song, and the raw torque that lets it grab red pine and pull like nothing else. It is, by any measure, one of the most physically imposing chainsaws ever built for a human being to carry. The DA-211 sits so high on this list precisely because it represents the outer limit of the old philosophy. Before the industry pivoted toward lighter, faster one-man saws, this was how you conquered giant timber with a giant machine. On displacement alone, nothing else from the entire vintage era matches it. The Disston Mercury DA-211 is our monstrous number 2. Number 1. The STIHL 09. And here it is, the crowned king of vintage production power. The saw that ends nearly every most powerful argument before it starts. The STIHL 090. The 090 displaced a colossal 137cc, making it the largest displacement chainsaw STIHL has ever put into series production, 16cc bigger than even the mighty modern MS-881. STIHL's own published figures rate it at around 8.5 horsepower, roughly 6.3 kilowatts, though it's so widely admired that you'll hear enthusiasts quote even higher numbers. It was a direct drive machine, meaning all of that enormous engine went straight to the chain, and it earned a legendary reputation with a simple, brutal promise: it will cut absolutely anything. The 090 wasn't fast, and nobody who ran one pretended otherwise. It was about unstoppable grunt, fitted with a long ripping chain and a bar stretching 4 feet or more. And the 090 became the go-to tool for chainsaw milling and for felling and slabbing the very largest logs, the jobs that would stall or destroy a lesser saw. Loggers strapped it to giant timber, the way you'd hook a mobile home to a pickup truck, slow, deliberate, and completely certain of finishing the job. STIHL even offered a gear drive variant, the 090G, for operators who wanted to trade still more speed for still more torque. What cements the 090? At number 1 is the combination of everything. It has the displacement to rival the biggest saws ever made. It carries the reliability and parts availability of the STIHL name, with tillots and carburetors and components that collectors can still source today. And it has the mythology, decades of stories from the men who wrestled it through old-growth forests. It is frequently cited, flat out, as the most powerful STIHL chainsaw ever made and one of the most powerful production chainsaws in history, full stop. Heavy, thunderous, and utterly legendary, the STIHL 090 is the undisputed #1. So that's it for today. If you like this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching.